Hey guys, Jay Young here with Young Red Angus. Once again, as always, thank you so much for making the video that you're watching right now a part of your day. I really appreciate everyone that views our channel, and it means the world to me. In today's video, I want to talk about some of the stuff that we're doing in regenerative agriculture and some of the stuff that Roger Air is doing in regenerative agriculture. So Roger had a field day last week that my son Caleb and I went to, and Roger is an hour and 30 minutes east of here. So still in western Kansas because we're 6 miles away from Colorado. Very similar environment. He might get a little bit more rain than us, but not enough that I would say it's a huge, significant difference. We have a very, very similar view on cover crops and regenerative agriculture, and I was really, really excited to see what he's been doing and the success that he's had doing the things that he's been doing. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video, is the approach to being able to get a cover crop in and follow it up with a cash crop, what we're doing and what they're seeing and what I saw at his field day that's got me really excited. So we'll roll the intro and get into it.
And this is what we all feel, let's just not deny it. Something pulls and it tears in the deepest place. This is what we all know, why must we still fight it? It's time to open our eyes and acknowledge the writing on the wall.
Today's episode is sponsored by Soilworks. Go to soilworksllc.com and check out their awesome products like GSR Calcium and Bio5. That's soilworksllc.com.
When you think about regenerative agriculture, we're always talking about the 5 soil health principles, which is armor on the soil, living root in the ground as long as possible, diversity of species, no-till, and integrating livestock. And then the newest one, which I guess would be the 6th one, is know your context. So when we think about knowing your context, knowing the context of western Kansas is you don't get a lot of rain, and so because you don't get a lot of rain, living root in the ground as long as possible is going to be less amount of time than a lot of other areas. So the system that I really like that doesn't necessarily work on all of our acres is having a summer cover crop growing, grazing it with cattle late summer or over the winter, and then coming back the following year with the cash crop of corn or milo. That is something that I've really, really liked. You can kind of see in our situation last year, cash crop following a cover crop didn't really work, but nothing really worked because it was so darn dry. If you look at this video, this is how our corn looks right now following a cover crop. This is how it looked last year following a cover crop. So huge difference in the amount of moisture that we've gotten. But I really like this system because when you're able to integrate that cover crop, you're able to add a bunch of different root structures from the different plants and the different species of plants. And it's really able to bring a lot of health benefits to your soil. So when we're looking at building a cover crop blend, we're wanting to put at least 8 different species in there and 2 from each group. So like 2 brassicas, 2 broadleaves, 2 legumes, and 2 grasses. And when I'm doing a summer cover crop, I'm typically getting about 4 grasses in there and then 2 of everything else. So for example, I want to talk about this field right over here. This particular field has had something growing on it for 4 years in a row. It was wheat, and then it was milo, and then it was a cash crop, or not cash crop, sorry. Then it was a cover crop blend that we had in last year, and then now it's corn. So I want to talk about that cover crop blend that we had from last year and why I like it so much. So that particular blend, we would have had, pearl millet, foxtail millet, dwarf Sudan grass, the BMR grazer, and then it would have had corn, sunflowers, sun hemp, buckwheat, daikon radish, maybe, and I might have had African cabbage or another brassica in there, and probably cowpeas. But those are what I typically get in most mixes. Sometimes I throw in a little bit of sorghum Sudan grass for the taller. But I love that mix so much because it is so drought tolerant. It seems like I've never planted that and not been able to graze it. I'm always able to get some kind of a grazing on it because even in the driest years, it's always producing growth. So let's look at it last year. Last year, we had our cattle out here in October and we were doing rotational grazing out here. And you know, it was 5 to 6 feet tall in a lot of the field. In a year that we got less than 12 inches of rain. 11 inches qualifies you for a desert. You know, that's a desert is a landmass that averages 11 inches of rain. So when you have a mix like that you can put in your fallow period, and then it's going to leave the amount of residue and create armor on the soil like it did last year, and be able to set up the following corn crop. It's something that I think it would be what I would want to do on a regular basis out here, if I had the manpower to do the rotational grazing over the winter. You know, that crop is going to cost you about $20 to $30, depending on the price of seed that year, for your planting. And then you don't have to terminate it because you're letting it freeze and your cattle are grazing it. Your costs are only the $20, your planting cost, and then your pre-emergent. We've been putting pre-emergents out to set up those cover crops, and it really works well in our dry and arid environment. So if you're in a dry and arid environment, I really recommend you getting, and you're wanting to get into regenerative agriculture, that summer cover crop blend is something that works out amazing. So this is what it looked like last year with grazing the cattle on it. And now this is what the corn crop is looking like. And like I brought up, the corn is doing amazing this year. It didn't do so great in this kind of system last year, but nothing did. I'm excited to harvest this. We'll kind of give an update video on when we harvest it. Now, Roger Ayers, the reason I wanted to bring up his field day is because I learned a couple of things that I wanted to share with you that I saw at Rogers that was really awesome. The first thing I want to bring up from going to Rogers field day real quick, before we jump into that, I want the photos that Roger sent me. I asked him after his field day to send me some stuff. So here's the cover crop that he had growing, that I was there and I got to see. And then he also sent me photos of his corn following wheat. And so that's these photos, and then his corn following his cover crops. So wanted to share that with you guys before we got into what I learned. Notice that I want to show you is that Roger didn't have as much weed pressure from pigweeds, kochia, that I'm having, and his sunflowers were struggling more than my sunflowers are. Our sunflowers have these big, giant, beautiful heads on them. Roger's sunflowers weren't quite as prominent in his mix. That could be from population, but even the sunflowers that were out there, they weren't doing as well as our sunflowers were doing, which means that those summer broadleaves, the two weeds, pigweed and kochia, and the sunflower were thriving in my situation, which means my soil conditions were better suited for those summer broadleaves than they are suited even for our grasses that are growing out there compared to what Roger is doing. So that tells me something that I think you guys need to know going into your system, is that when you're getting advice on how to and what to plant in your system, understanding where your soil is at and how compact it is, what type of soil you have, what existing nutrient availability that is in your soil, all those play a factor in what is going to thrive in the cover crop mix blend that you plant. So you may be in Western Kansas as well, and you're thinking, I'm going to do what Jay Young and Roger's doing, and I'm going to plant this cover crop mix. Well, it may respond different in your soil than it responded in ours, because even in me and Roger's situation, things were responding differently. The other thing I've noticed from this summer is I've planted 2 cover crop mixes on 2 fields that this is the first year that they've gotten cover crops, and they're 2 fields that we haven't owned very long. And I'm noticing that where we've been doing synthetic fertilizers for a long time, the cover crops going in the first time have done pretty well. This year, where we've gotten a lot of rain, I'm not seeing a lot of growth off of these cover crop fields. And I realized, oh, like these people that we bought these fields from, because they haven't been putting out any kind of fertilizer, that these cover crops, they're not growing like they have in the past. And so those are all things that you need to consider when you're picking your cover crop blends and when you're preparing to go into your system, to realize, just because you throw a cover crop out there doesn't mean it's going to look like what everybody else is doing when they're putting cover crops out in their system. Your soil type, your amount of rain, your soil respiration, the amount of nutrient availability, they all play a role in how your cover crop is going to respond. And that's something that you need to be thinking about. And so that's something that I realized from Roger's field day that I wanted to bring up in this video. The other thing that I got really excited about, that, something Roger is doing is really working, that I need to, talk to him more in the future and try to see if the things that he's doing setting up his corn are things that we can mimic, and see if we can get the boost that he's getting. Because Roger did a Brix test on his corn that's a non-GMO corn, and that corn had a Brix level of 16. If you guys watch some of my earlier videos, I did a Brix test on our Jimmy Red corn, and it was at a 5. And so that got me really excited for Roger, and also really excited that, hey, let's kind of learn from this other farmer and see what Roger's doing, that we can try implementing to bring up the Brix level in our plants. If you didn't catch that video and you don't know what Brix is the measurement of sugar that is in your plant. So having a low Brix level like what we had with 5 means our sugar level is low, which means that the plant is more susceptible to insect pressure and parasitic funguses than Brix level that's high. If you get your Brix level above a 13 on your corn, then it will be able to it either will fight off or it won't be appealing. And I think that's what it is. It's not appealing to the predatory insects. And then also, if your Brix level is high, it means that you have the beneficial fungus within your plant that are going to ward off the parasitic funguses that will be attacking your plant. So those are all things I learned from going to Roger's field day that got me really excited. It was an awesome day. Jimmy Edmonds spoke.
Dr. Dave Rethorse.
And they all provided a lot of great information. Also, Michael Thompson and Bryce Custer were there, both of two guys who are huge pioneers in doing regenerative agriculture and cover crops in Western Kansas that I've learned so much for. So I wanted to give a shout out to both of them. All the people that were involved in the field day did an amazing job. I thought it was a huge success. And it just got me to thinking, like, as often as there are regenerative agricultural field days in your area, those are things that you're going to want to be going to, regardless of how long you've been in regenerative agriculture. You're going to meet people. I've known Roger, but it was cool seeing. I didn't realize that he had been doing regenerative agriculture roughly the same amount of time that I have. And it's always fun being around those type of people, because you realize they all are on, similar journeys to you, and you're always, iron sharpens iron. So you're always able to pick up and learn from other people. And so that was what was really exciting to me, that I wanted to bring back to this video of, is make sure that you're allowing iron to sharpen you in your life. Always be learning from the other farmers in your area that are into regenerative agriculture. Stay humble and stay hungry to acquire wisdom and knowledge from the other people around you.
That concludes today's video. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you next week.